Thank you for doing this. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's a delight.
I've been seeing you on the internet all over the place, mister. So whoever you got doing your social media and all that stuff, it's working because, my first introduction to Adam Lane Smith, and you do use, like Stevie Ray Vaughan, you use all three names.
Oh, I must. If you go by Adam Smith, it's an old, dead Scottish economist, and you will
Oh, okay.
never compete with that kind of brand recognition. He's got 3,000 books about him on Amazon. So Adam Lane Smith is a must.
Okay. Well, all right. Well, I was first introduced to you, I believe it was the Modern Wisdom podcast, which
Which
is,
one? I've done it 4 times.
I was going to say, you've been on there several times, and that's one of my favorite podcasts, and I watched your stuff. And in my world, we'll get into this. The attachment thing is, that's it, my man. For like the past couple of years, that's all everybody's been talking about. So, Modern Wisdom, I'm flipping through and I see something about attachment. I got to watch this. And I watched your stuff and I said, hot damn, I like this guy's stuff. And then it came up 3 or 4 times. And then you were on this other one. And then I see your clips. You know how it works. The algorithm's like, well, you like the bearded dude? Here's more of them.
That's
and
right.
So,
that's right.
so
I'll never forget that, years back when I started
Yeah.
this, no one would talk about attachment. Nobody would talk about it. It was old, outdated. It was some dusty theory on a shelf in the back alley kind of thing. Nobody wanted to hear about it. And I got on and I started talking about it and I marketed it. And I said, look, this is the thing. I started teaching about it on TikTok of all places, and it erupted. Oh my goodness. We went from 300 followers to 180,000 in 6 weeks. And TikTok, they just could not get enough of attachment. So I started teaching there. I blew up over on YouTube, just hit 100,000, over on Instagram, over on Twitter, just everyone, everywhere, all of a sudden wanted to hear about it. And what I have found is, I don't think this will be you, but what I found is where as I go through the world teaching about attachment, a lot of maybe half of the podcast creators that I speak to all of a sudden become attachment experts themselves and start having a bunch of material about it. I've worked with people who have decided they are attachment experts as well, and they try to spread the message as best as they can. They get quite a bit of it wrong, but I'm just pleased that my first phase is of getting everybody in the world talking about attachment. I'm pleased that it has worked. And now what we need to do is refine some of the things that people get wrong about it. A lot of people think it's your astrology sign, you're stuck with it forever, and then it's an excuse to mistreat your partner. And that's not the case. We got to talk about fixing it now.
What is it about it that is so captivating to so many people that are interested in, quote unquote, fixing relationships?
When you build a house on a broken, crooked foundation, you get a bad house. And you could tear the house down and build another house on the same foundation. It will be another bad house. Attachment, really what it is when you're a child, something scared you over and over and over, and you got hurt emotionally. It doesn't have to be abuse. You could be in the NICU as a baby. It could be daycare way too early, distant parents, anxious parents, traumatized parents. But something scared you and hurt you so bad and multiple times as a kid that you formed a trauma response in the first year or 2 of your life, and your little toddler brain made a permanent lifelong decision that you haven't ever really looked at or questioned. And it decided to never be that close to anybody ever again, and instead to play games to try to get approval and get safety and get connection in limited ways, so you could try to just barely scrape by and survive. And that is the foundation of every relationship you will ever build. So until you go back and examine and fix that, you keep building crooked houses and you wonder why everything slides to one side and then falls out the window. And when you fix attachment, all of a sudden, everything you build is straight and level and it works. So you fix attachment, you fix everything else in your life.
Amen, brother. I love it. But here, let's play devil's advocate here.
Go ahead.
But I'm a man. Adam.
Mm-hmm.
I don't deal with this psychobabble nonsense horse shit of it's my childhood and it's that yet. Let's just stop with the malarkey. And if we can just all behave, we'll all be in good shape, right?
Sure.
It's that simple. Just, yeah.
Sure. So in a car's engine, you have a number of parts, and let's talk fluids, okay? If your transmission has no transmission fluid in it, 0. If your radiator has 0 coolant in it, if you have 0 gasoline, is your car going to work very well? Or is it going to blow up and kill you?
There you go. I've used the car engine analogy quite a bit. It's a perfect, yeah.
Right. So, well, that's great. So let's just talk Let's just
Mm-hmm.
talk chemicals and fluids. Okay. When you grow up with broken attachment, let's say that you have avoidant attachment. Most men fall into the avoidance side. With avoidant attachment, you've learned that other people are not to be trusted. You can't open up and share your emotions with them. Nobody's going to help you feel better. Nobody's coming to save you. And you become a very lone wolf specialist on achieving goals for yourself. You're probably great in finance, great in business, great at climbing the corporate ladder. You probably work 16 hours a day without batting an eye. You probably live on caffeine, and you probably are very highly disciplined. Now, unfortunately, here's what happens is when you have that trauma response as a child, it makes you very, very strong and self-focused in good ways. But what it doesn't do is allow you to click out of your fight or flight mode. So avoidantly attached men, massive high performers, these CEOs, these political figures, Hollywood figures, they come to me all the time like this. Adam, I'm on my fourth marriage. My life has been great financially, but all of my wives hate me and none of my children will speak to me. And now I'm depressed and I hate my life. And I have all the money I could ever have dreamed of. I have 6 houses and 5 Lambos, and I can't keep a girlfriend to save my life. And everyone hates me. I don't really even want to be alive anymore. What's wrong with me? And I say, okay, let's fix you. So I talk to them about being chronically activated in their sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight response. For avoidant men, it is always, always, always on and always buzzing. Why? Because when you are highly stressed out as a child, your oxytocin receptors block, they close. These are basic mammal bonding hormones. All social mammals have this. We need it. We need this to thrive. When you have low oxytocin, you have low GABA, gamma aminobutyric acid. GABA is the inhibitory neurotransmitter that suppresses cortisol. It regulates your cortisol levels. So when you have no GABA, your cortisol is just flooded through the roof up to your eyeballs all the time. So the smallest thing happens, your system floods, and now you can't think of anything except that. You're holding your child, but thinking about work. You're making love to your wife, but thinking about work. You're sitting there trying to eat a dinner with your family, but thinking about work. You are never present, never focused, and never relaxed. Now, because this cortisol is unregulated through your system, and because you can't solve those problems with other people, you don't get vasopressin. Vasopressin is a bonding hormone that men have more receptors for than women do. We are supposed to be bonding by solving problems, but the vast majority of men today do not solve problems with anyone because they're a lone wolf. No one's coming to help me, so they pull away and solve problems alone. Now, because of all of this, they can't use magnesium appropriately to synthesize melatonin, so they have chronic insomnia. Because they have chronic insomnia, their testosterone is not replenishing properly during the night, and neither is human growth hormone. They have a harder time building muscles, maintaining muscles, healing their body, and having that testosterone oomph past 30 that is supposed to be there. We're seeing testosterone rates plummet into the ground. So if any man out there doesn't want to talk about his feelings, but is concerned about his T levels, this is what he needs to be hearing about. It also will tank your immune system. So you're going to get sick more often, injured more often, not heal as often. And then what's going to happen is you're at massively, massively increased risk of early cancer, early heart attack, and early stroke, and dying by the age of 45 to 55, which is where we see a tremendous number of these men die. So they work excessively hard to build their fortune and empire, have a horrific medical challenge. Nobody is there to help them. Nobody cares about them, and they're alone in the world, and their body degrades, and then they die at 45, a most painful, agonizing death. This is not what most men should be aiming for. This is not really high performing. The goal is to salvage the pieces of this that make you successful and thrive, and then build in the appropriate foundation so you have proper human relationships. Your oxytocin receptors open up, your fight or flight sympathetic nervous system cools down. You can enter your parasympathetic nervous system, rest and digest mode, where you're going to rest and digest, as it says, generate more serotonin. You're going to be present in a moment with your family. Your T levels go up, your HGH goes up, your oxytocin, vasopressin, bonding hormones activate, so you feel connected with other humans and no longer lonely in that aspect. And then your GABA goes up, so your cortisol comes down when appropriate, and then life gets so good. And this is the biochemical cocktail that makes your car engine run so that you can live till you're 95 with high levels of quality of life up till 95, so that at 95, you've got a hot girlfriend in a bikini and you're driving around in your Lambo and everyone adores you and you're relaxed into those moments, really fulfilled. Or you have a beautiful wife that you've lived with your whole life and you have 5, 10, 20 children and all these grandchildren and a legacy, and they all are strong and thriving because you've been personally connected to them. So every man out there who's like, ugh, feelings. Well, okay, but legacy, testosterone, muscles, and not dying of cancer at 45. What do you think of that? Does that grab you, Ralph?
So yes. So yes, guys. Yeah, exactly. So yes, guys, this stuff
A
matters.
little bit.
Okay. So pay
A little bit.
attention, set aside your male ego, and just sit back and try to learn a bit, is what we would say to those guys
There
out
you
there.
go.
But let me paint a picture for you. My audience, my little corner of the world. Just a quick overview. Approximately 12 years ago, I went through a divorce. It was nasty. And part of my way of coping, way of getting better, was to go back to doing some things that I used to do pre-marriage. A lot of guys go through this. Like before marriage, I used to be into race cars, and they get back into race cars. Well, my thing was not so manly, writing. I used to love to write as a young man.
What's
Got
not
away
manly
from it
about
when I
that?
got married,
Like
had kids, and
Herman
everything. So,
Melville was a writer, like Moby
well,
Dick.
it's not
Well,
not
it is if
wrenching
you're
a
drinking
car or
whiskey
whatever,
while
but
you do it. You have like a wooden desk.
there you go. That's right. That's right. So went back to writing, did a blog, and it wasn't until I wrote on certain subjects that I got some attention. One of those subjects was sex and marriage. Sex sells. Who doesn't like talking about sex? And it got some attention, and somebody suggested you should write a book on this. I like your writing stuff.
I see
So
that.
behind me, you'll see a book is
I
called
see
The
that.
Dead Bedroom Fix. So I self-published the thing. Make a long story short, the thing sold like 300,000 some odd copies. And so I'm like, I'm onto something here. That's after 3 editions on every format, audio, the whole 9 yards. So that allowed me to branch out and do other things, and started talking to men one-on-one. They're paying me for my time. Started a men's group, typical stuff, podcasts, videos, the whole nine. You start noticing patterns with the men that come to me as a result of this dumb book. And the pattern is the flip side of what you just said. Instead of the avoidant man, I get the anxiously attached, preoccupied men who are overly concerned of all about their relationship to the wife. The wife who very obviously, unfortunately for a lot of these men, wants nothing to do with the poor guy. And she is doing this for years and years. Stay back. And one of the side effects of this is poor sex life, hence why he buys the book and so on and so forth. But when we dig, we realize anxious guy, anxious guy, anxious guy, avoidant wife, avoidant wife. Okay, there's a pattern here. We're onto something. In addition to that, ADHD guy, ADHD guy, ADHD guy, neurodivergence, a lot of autism spectrum, ADHD, and so forth. We see that over and over again, combined with the very anxiously attached guys. They're more into this stuff, probably more so than the avoidant guy, obviously, because they love to research. They YouTube and podcast and read books galore. They've probably seen all of your videos, I'm sure. And so those guys come to me, so they're going to love that we're chatting. The godfather of attachment here.
I'll take that name. That's good.
There you go. Okay, there, run with it. There you go. That'll be your next book. So, what do we say to these poor guys?
Do you know what?
Is it the same? Let me pause you there. Is it the same as what we would say to an anxiously attached gal, which tends to be the majority of people out there?
People ask me for a long time what causes anxious attachment. I had to puzzle over it and really start looking at all the research and fitting together things that nobody has ever fit together. And you know what I discovered was something called learned helplessness. Um, through the research that they did back in the 50s and 60s, as they would put dogs in electric cages and shock them. And it was just as bad as you can imagine. And that generated a lot of research on unlearned helplessness. As we looked at male depression rates and what they report, a feeling of helplessness, powerlessness. When we look at when you take surveys of women for qualities that make them unattracted to men, largely what you see is low emotional discipline, approval seeking, agreeableness, that sort of the anxious, nice guy tendencies. Dr. Robert
Yep.
Glover wrote the book on nice guy tendencies. He's my mentor. He's a fantastic
He's a friend of mine.
genius
Yeah.
on this topic. He's
Mhm.
wonderful, isn't he? Um, with you, when you take all of this and you put it together with the work of Dr. Sue Carter, the leading world expert on oxytocin vasopressin bonding, and then what you see when you give a creature that has never really had oxytocin, you give it oxytocin and then take it away and give it and take it away, and the trauma response that develops, the helplessness paired up with the dog helplessness examination, the men reporting reporting helplessness, the women reporting low desire for men who have approval seeking traits. When you put all this together, what the picture that emerges is a boy child who was for some reason given love and affection, and then it was perceived to be taken away. And so they get the oxytocin hormone when you're 1 year old. It says, mom loves me and she won't leave me in the woods for wolves to eat me. So I'm probably okay. And then it's taken away. Nope, she's going to leave me for the wolves to eat me. And then it's given and taken and given and taken and given and taken. And what the brain does is try to determine patterns about why it's being taken away. Maybe mom works 12 hours a day. She's a single mom. Maybe she's stressed out all the time. Maybe she did the cry it out method with her kid. Maybe she's abusive, but maybe she's extremely obsessive helicopter parenting. Maybe she's focused on her phone. There are so many reasons that it can be given and taken away. Again, even a NICU baby who's put into the NICU and cuddled occasionally, but thrown back in, they learn not that, okay, well, the world around me is a little strange, but maybe it'll get better. They learn I'm doing something bad and everyone sees it but me, and I keep getting punished and it's my fault and no one loves me. I'm worthless. I have to beg and grovel for approval. And if I'm good enough, maybe people won't abandon me and I won't die. So it welds disapproval with death together in that man's brain. And then he grows up desperately trying to please his mom so she won't leave him. And then he carries that forward into sexuality with a girlfriend, with a wife. And so his goal is I want sex. I can never ask for sex. I'm dirty and bad. And if I ask for it, she'll yell at me and tell me I'm bad, or even worse, she'll pity me and begrudgingly do it. And now I really am bad. I have to do chores. I have to do chore play to try to turn her on. I have to do 10 nice things for her, and she'll eventually figure out what I need. And as he plays these games endlessly, it is exhausting for these women because he doesn't stay nice and approval seeking. He occasionally transforms into an angry, resentful version where he blows out about how he's never getting his needs met. She doesn't care. He's the only one that does care. He has those little manipulative eruptions here and there where he's passive aggressive. And what she learns is he's not doing nice things for me because he cares about me. He's trying to get things from me, but he doesn't have the guts to say anything. And then her brain is programmed, hunter gatherer style, to say if he won't even raise normal boundaries with me where it's safe to do it, he will not have boundaries against people who attack us, against other women who try to steal him, against bandits, against wolves in outside. He will never protect us. I have to protect us. And it clicks her into protective masculine mode. And then she really becomes his mother and manages him and then resents him because of that. So she is stressed out in her sympathetic nervous system all the time. Avoidant women come in like that already because they're seeking certain things, but they still resent him. And ultimately, what happens is no woman is really capable of respecting or trusting or desiring him. So these men are the least likely to ever pair up or ever have sex with anyone. Anybody, any other man on the planet who doesn't have this trait, he could have 15 felonies on his record. He could be ugly. He could be broke. Any other man is more likely to pair up with a woman and have sex because this is the most undesirable, unsafe trait that most women will identify. So if there's an opposite of female Viagra, it's nice guy tendencies.
Just what every nice guy wants to hear. You're the antithesis of attraction. You're
It's 100% fixable. It's just you need to know that this is the reason that they don't desire you, not because you're innately bad, but because of the way you approach relationships. Your foundation is cracked. You've got to repair it. And once you do, then oh my goodness, you're sensitive, you're thoughtful, but you're also courageous. You're calm and outspoken. You know what it's like to not be loved, so you give love attentively. Recovered nice guys can become some of the most fantastic partners, husbands, fathers, grandfathers on the planet. And then you're very desirable, but you've got to fix those tendencies that are flagging as weak and undesirable for
and what I've
women.
seen is it's talk about patterns that we see in these anxious men. The avoidant women, it's funny how they're mirroring a lot of the characteristics that you laid out initially about the avoidant man as far as type A go-getters. So they'll get with women that are very hyper-achieving, executive level, attorney, partner in their law firm types, and the man tends to be sometimes the dreamer. He's more of the creative. He's the musician, writer, whatever. He's in between jobs. He does a little sales thing, but his real dream is to be a guitarist in a band, and he does that. And the wife is
Yeah.
the supportive structure. And it's so interesting. And some people look at that as it's kind of a gender flip, isn't it? A gender role flip, if you will.
And I wonder a little bit if that's why those women went avoidant instead of anxious. We are seeing a rise of more avoidant women. But
Mm-hmm.
yes, it's a gender flip, but I think that it could work for some couples provided that they fix the attachment piece. Now, fixing the
Mm,
attachment piece doesn't make her less focused on finances or practicality. It just means she is less stressed out and less freaked out, less lone wolf. She's not withdrawn. She doesn't have what we call oxytocin phobic response, where she only is having sex with you twice a week on a schedule to try to please you so that you won't leave, kind of thing. She's managing like milking a goat, or where she does not desire orgasm at all with you, or where she will only face the other direction during sex,
mm,
or where she will put her clothes on immediately afterward and jump right out of bed and doesn't want to cuddle with you, where none of your romantic advice you get online ever works with her because her oxytocin receptors are blocked shut. And she's now in a non-functional mode where her fertility is down, her breastfeeding ability is way down, her mothering instinct is way down typically. It's not an optimal state. You can repair all of those things without changing her personality, without overhauling her as a human being. It's giving her a peace mode instead of constant war mode, and then giving the man the ability to be effective in his life and make the changes he wants, so that instead of dreaming, maybe he can start achieving. And that's a big piece too.
mm. And when you say give the woman the peace mode, is it as simple as saying, back off, Mr. Anxious, needy man,
Uh,
give her some space?
um, One thing, interestingly, that some people do say is you have to rescue the avoidant person from the anxious person first. And what I say is the avoidant person doesn't trust the anxious person because the anxious person is constantly looking for co-regulation instead of self-regulation. They don't know how to self-regulate because they didn't as children, and they've learned they can't. So then they don't self-regulate their own their own nervous system and their anxious responses or anger or anything. They just desperately crave other people to help them. And so when you learn to self-regulate and manage your own emotions, to respond instead of react, when you learn to be more disciplined in that fashion, not suppressing your feelings but managing them properly, all of a sudden you are enormously trustworthy, because now your behaviors are not based on how you feel. They're based on your long-term goals and your core principles that you follow, which are trackable, they're articulatable, you can discuss them, you can measure them, you can improve them over time. When you are driven by how you feel at the moment or by how someone has made you feel, then you're a security risk all the time. So giving her the ability to even trust you, that you are not a liability, that's massively important.
Let's address the big negative elephant in the room, though, which is coming more to center. I don't know if that's the proper term. That's the one I use, meaning becoming more secure. Thinking of the two, come to the middle. For your, let's say, your anxious guy. And what anxious guy wants to hear is, if I become more secure, then she's going to stay, right? If I become more secure, she's going to become this, I always say, this slobbering, overcome with lustfulness woman that I've always wanted, right? Right? Not necessarily. It,
I hate to
yeah,
say, I mean, I hate to say yes, basically. Natural biology is when you help a woman truly feel safe, and I mean existentially safe, resource safe, safe from you and your emotions, safe from other people, safe from disruptions. When you give her the ability to have a calm nervous system where she's in the center sphere, what we call the domestic sphere, and you're on the outside in the external sphere, then you're protecting her and buffering her from existential level threats and from yourself. When you create a safe, stable, predictable world for her on the inside, then her oxytocin receptors open up, and as you give emotional intimacy to her and build it with her, you benefit too. As you give that emotional intimacy to her and you raise that oxytocin level, if she's receptive to it, if she's
that's where
willing
it
to
does
have
it.
that
Yeah,
conversation.
which is
Some
tough.
avoidant, yeah, some avoidant women are not. They resist tooth and claw, but most of them program in and want to work with you and say, "Okay, I'll give it a shot." Now nature takes its course. There's a reason that mammals tend to breed like rabbits, is because when we are in the right conditions, our biochemistry shifts in that direction. Now, if she's been in hardcore survival mode, survive in the ruins, scrabble for meat, eat lizards, feed lizards to my husband and children, and barely scrape out a living, well, her sex drive is going to plummet through the floor out of safety so that she doesn't have children. Her sex drive is gone. It also is not safe to have children with a man who's not going to protect or provide. But when you give her that safety and she begins to truly respect who you are as a person, Doesn't mean she has to fawn all over you and swoon, but to respect you as a man, and then to be able to predict you in a good way, and then to feel buffered and safe on the inside with her calmed nervous system. If she's doing her own nervous system regulation work too, and then you're able to give her that oxytocin intimacy that both of you share, that emotional intimacy. As you foster that, her intimacy goes like this: her oxytocin grows, her serotonin grows, her estrogen grows, her progesterone goes up, her human growth hormone goes up, her GABA goes up, her cortisol goes down. Everything goes like this. And then all of a sudden, her system says, have 47 babies. Her system is like whispering in her ear, now is a good time to get pregnant 6 times in a row. That's her system will tell her this. And even if she's not consciously like, I think I'm going to get pregnant, her system will say, turn up the sex drive, because that tends to make babies. So she will desire closeness with you the more closeness she feels with you. So long roundabout answer is yes. Usually we find actually that when a man converts to a new religion, 97% of the times his wife converts with him. women are
Isn't that
very
interesting?
Women are very typically malleable, so long as they actually believe that you are stable and worth following. The interesting thing about that is when a man converts to a new religion, he is taking a stand, he's making decisions, he is forming his ideas based usually on principles and ethics and goals, and he is defining who he is in a much more moral and ethical framework that other people can rely upon. We think of Hammurabi with ancient Babylon and his code, the first instance we have of written law, really. And we go back to that. And why has he stood the test of time? Because he was a man who created safety and stability and predictability with a very clear code of conduct. We must all strive to be like Hammurabi in our home, not a tyrant, but a pillar of safety and predictability, so that women and children can rely upon us. And then, yes, your wife's sex drive almost inevitably goes through the roof, and then you're begging her for a night off, usually, is what the process goes.
Hmm. But we don't want to discount those poor guys who do all
Not
the
always.
work, and
Not
they really
always.
are following the textbook, and they're with a therapist, and yeah, they're working on their nice guy tendencies, and they're anxious, and they're more secure, and they look across the table at a partner who's just like, yeah, I don't want to put any work into this. I see what you're doing, I recognize it, bravo to you, but yeah,
Yeah, I don't
it's
want
not
to do better. Yeah.
it's not happening over here. And we see that with people that are depressed, and people with addictions, and people that are have attachment issues.
People who have severe attachment issues and are very angry and bitter, we do see that the rise of personality disorders has gone up. It used to be an estimated 10% of the population. Now we're estimating anywhere from 15 to 20% now,
Oh wow.
as time has marched on. Yes, very bad. The attachment issue rate has gone up from approximately 50%, well, about 35% among the boomers, 50% among millennials,
Ooh.
about 65% among Gen Z. And now the numbers are skewing even harder as times have got worse. They're looking at maybe an upwards to 75% of adults now maybe have attachment issues. And that includes the 10 to 15 to 20% of personality disorders, which are the extreme versions. So we're looking at a massive meteoric rise of these issues ongoing. And yes, sometimes your wife will not follow you. And you must frankly be prepared for that. The worst thing you can do is do this process to try to win your wife back or have sex with her. If I do this, I will get free sex. That's not
Mm-hmm.
going to work. It's I will do this for me because it's what's demanded of me from my own heart, my own goals, my own ethics. And then you do it and you pursue it. And either she will 97% of the time usually follow you, but not always. Not always. And do be prepared for that. And quite frankly, being prepared for it sends such a strong message that you are a strong, resilient man who is confident about this way being the right way, that even resistant women usually will start to follow you. Not
Mm-hmm.
always, but usually.
And if God forbid the worst case scenario presents itself, and sometimes when you let them go, they continue going. The old bird, let it go. If it
Correct.
comes back, it was meant to be. But guess what, guys? If you are in fact working on your attachment issues and you're a more secure individual, you'll be fine.
Yeah, because
Trust us, you'll be
it's
fine.
not just with her. You're fixing your attachment with your best friends, your 4 or 5 best friends. If you don't have those, you get
Mm,
them with your family, maybe your siblings, parents, if appropriate, with your pastor, your priest, your business partner, your mentor. You've got this gathering of human beings around you where you diversify that portfolio of human bonding. And then, yes, your wife is an added component to that, but she's not the core of your life anymore either. She's not the goddess on a velvet pillow. She is a piece of your life, and you can live without her. And then if she chooses to leave, it's like removing a thorn from your side that has festered for 10 years. And yes, it will hurt. And yes, there will be ache and soreness, but now it can heal. And then as you move forward, you can figure out how to live a better life without that festering thorn in your side.
And then the other sad aspect of this, not to make it too negative, that I see is she is willing to work. She's doing great. And I'm in therapy. Let's go together, yada, yada. And she's comparing notes and she's excited about it. And he's great. But there's a part of my book, The Dead Bedroom Fix, where I ask the guy, let's be blunt up front. Do you want your wife or do you just want sex? There's a difference. Do you like the woman? This is a woman who's been saying buzz off, buzz off, buzz off, sometimes for years and years. It's perfectly okay to say, I don't really like her all that much anymore. She's kind of mean and she's cruel to me and she's called me this and that.
Yep.
And when guys go through this process of becoming a more secure individual and they're going through therapy and they're working on, often with men, it starts with the physicality, hitting the gym and doing those things. And then they look at the deeper issues and then they become this quote unquote total package of a much healthier man. And then they look across the table at a gal who has been rejecting him for a long time. And he has a lot of resentment. And frankly, he looks at her and goes, "Yeah, I feel terrible because she's trying like hell. She really is. But I don't like her anymore." And I was like, well, be honest with yourself. You owe it to her. Are you in this for the long haul or not? She's trying like hell, the poor thing. And you're married to her. You made your vows. That means something. If you're not willing to say, I'm willing to work on this, I recognize a marriage is this. It's not always, straight up. If you're not willing to do that, let her go to find somebody who is willing to do that. And, that brings up a lot of anxious tendencies again. I'm giving up. And it's like, well,
And the problem is he's looking across the table at her and saying, I don't like her anymore and I feel too guilty to say anything about it. Well, therein lies the problem. You probably need to sit down with her and have a conversation with her about, hey, you know what? As we're doing this work, I'm not really feeling much of a connection with you. In fact, so many of the cruel, hurtful things you've said through the years are echoing in my ears, and all the rejection is just pounding me in the head. And I kind of find that I'm very angry at you and that I'm very disturbed and even just disconnected. I've worked with plenty of those couples. I can say that usually you can reconnect that passion and desire, but it doesn't happen until you tell her. And then what does she do? She shouldn't scamper desperately and approvingly for to try to get those pieces. She shouldn't become anxiously attached herself. What she needs to do is sit down with you and start bonding with you and talking with you and building goals together. Men have more receptors for vasopressin bonding than women do. We need to be bonding with our wives appropriately by solving problems together instead of each one of us working on ourselves in therapy. What are we doing together to solve problems? How are we building a goal for a marriage? What are we achieving? Are we going out and having a great time learning skills together? Are we growing in vasopressin? And then as we do that, are we growing in oxytocin bonding? Are we having serotonin enriching moments together? Or are we just paying the bills, being miserable, and we're not having sex and we hate each other? And now you're supposed to be happy and I'm supposed to just return what feelings? You have to build those feelings. The problem for most guys is that the novelty dopamine that was there when you met her is gone because that's dead at 5 to 7 months. So you don't now have the novelty dopamine to try to reinvest in getting to know her again and reinvest in connecting. So now you're going to have to do the manual work without the dopamine hits as much. You're going to have to do that, but you're going to have those conversations. Does she humble herself? Does she say, I am so truly sorry? Yes, you said I did say those things and I meant them at the time. And I don't necessarily take them back at the time, but I know that that's not who you are anymore. And you're so different who you are now. And now I respect you. Now I really want to follow you, not because my love is conditional, but because you were not the man that I needed for our family. And now you truly are. And now I want to be with you. There's so many pieces there that can be unpacked, and there's so many conversations that need to be had, and running away from them and just giving into your feelings because it's like, well, sorry, you don't do it. I'm not rising to the occasion, so I guess this is over. I'm gonna go find a girlfriend. That's some guys do that. I know it can be rekindled. In the vast majority of cases, it can. It just takes work and desire, and you have to push on her. She has to humble herself and become more feminine and more connected to you.
I'm glad you mentioned the novelty hit there and how important that is. Another honest thing is that as these men again, become more secure, work on themselves, they become kind of more of a catch, if you will, in the market.
Yes.
And if
Yes.
they are a guy who has been without physical connection with his wife for a while, he's a hungry wolf on the prowl, so to speak. And if he starts getting attention from the opposite sex, something that most of these nice guys haven't experienced, maybe ever, um, the cute little thing at the office starts, saying things. Let's go to coffee. Let's do that. Oh goodness, those guys. Oh, do they cheat? Oh yeah. Are they much less apt to work it out with the gal who's been rejecting them for so many years? Oh yeah. So I always say to guys, boy, your boundaries are more important than ever during this whole thing. Oh my goodness, you have
Yeah.
to flex those boundaries and tell that young girl, I appreciate it. Thanks. It means a lot, but no, I'm a married dude. Sorry. And mean it. And if it means you have to go move desks or whatever at work, that's what it means. That's the kind of level of commitment that it takes.
You need a goal beyond your wife. You need a goal beyond be nice to my wife or don't hurt her feelings. You need a goal like, raise the next 3 generations of healthy children who
Mm.
value marriage and actually connect. And so I can't cheat on my wife because I'll be ruining my children in the next 3 generations who will hate marriage. Or, what is your goal and why does not cheating fit into your goal? Have a bigger goal beyond, well, my wife would be mad if I had sex, even though it's been 3 years. That's not a goal. That's not going to resist. There's no boundary strong enough in the world to do that. If you haven't eaten a meal in a week and there's a chocolate cake in front of you and you're like, I shouldn't eat this chocolate cake because my trainer would be mad. That's not going to work. I shouldn't eat this chocolate cake because I am about to win $10 billion, and then and if I don't if I eat the cake, that money is gone. That's much stronger incentive to not eat that chocolate cake. So have a goal that is personal to you that you want, not your wife's feelings. Your wife's feelings actually, honestly, in the grand scheme of things, your wife's feelings should never determine your course of action. Never, under any circumstances.
Very good. So if I'm a guy and I'm very anxiously attached, and it's very obvious because he talked to Ralph, and Ralph told him, "Yeah, you're really anxiously attached, dude. You need to work on that with somebody." First steps for them. What should they do?
First thing you've got to do is learn that you do have power over your nervous system. First thing with most anxious guys is they're spiking off the charts with panic symptoms or chronic anxiety, overthinking, can't sleep. They're rehearsing a conversation in the shower or in bed for the 3 hours. It can't sleep at night. And what you've got to do is stop feeling powerless against your nervous system. There's physical techniques you can use to manage your emotional responses. The left side brain is your logical brain, the right side is your emotional. Typically, most people try to look like this: high logic, low emotions. And anxious guys are a little bit more like this, chronically skewed. So they're a little less logical and a little more emotional anyway into the dream state. But what happens when they get bumped slightly is they have very little buffer. So they go like this, and their logical brain goes way down. Their emotional brain on the right side spikes really hard. And now they're ruminating and stuck because they can't logically think through problems. All they can do is feel, feel, feel. And then that's where you feel helpless and powerless. But there's a nice process with the hindbrain as you begin to feel progressive prolonged, intense physical discomfort. Progressive muscle relaxation with tensing components is one thing I teach. There's somatic body work, there's breath work, there's so many things you can do, but you can dismantle those spikes that you're feeling and take control of your nervous system. If you have chronic spikes that you can't control, EMDR is one of the best therapies on the planet. It's got an 80 to 90% success rate. It's an eye movement based therapy, non talk based. There's a number of factors that go into it, but it's 80 to 90% success. It's massive. People need to be doing this for that. As you regulate your own nervous system, you need to realign your decision making, not to convenience or people's feelings or even approval, but to your core principles and your long term goals, which means you need to define your 3 core principles you will follow, and you need to define your long term goals in a legacy format with a 20-year plan, 10-year plan, 5-year plan, 1-year plan, 6-month, 3-month, not 1 month, 1 week, 1 day. You need to track it backward and then live it forward. And as you do that, you begin filtering your relationships and talking to people about those things. And then as you reveal yourself and your overthinking tendencies to others and then get assistance with reality testing and with conversing to them about your challenges in a solution focused way instead of an emotional dumping way, as you build that in, you start being accepted by other people with your weaknesses because you are diligently working on them. And then you grow respect, and then they love you. And now you understand what it's like to be consistently loved for who you are. So you gain self respect and self love because now you have that because people you respect love you. So you start having that self respect and self love and self acceptance as well. That's the last thing to usually trickle in. It's not the first thing that we should start with. That's a lie that we've been sold by Western media. But this is really the process. And then as you build those relationships with the people around you, the research shows that you need about 3 human beings that fully accept you as a human. And as you have that, your whole brain chemistry resets, your hormones reset. You enter a very strong, secure biological state. And then you start making decisions consistently differently, and you start correcting yourself when you fall backward into old patterns. Then you clear your life of ongoing chronic relationship stress. Then you just have short term, small, acute stress, which you manage better with the help of the people in your life. And then your life is amazing. Now you've put life on easy mode, and then you get to enjoy it. That's the process of fixing attachment.
And you mentioned a couple of key words that came to mind as listen to you. One is a purpose, a sense of purpose, very important to men,
Mhm.
a mission, if you will. It's a very manly thing, and a sense of control over things. Like I'm not just some helpless little baby, going down the stream. I'm a man. I can take control of this. Damn it! There's steps to this process, which is very empowering. But there can be a dark side, a left turn to all of this. There is a whole world like online, so to speak, of this the red pill world and so forth, which in
They
essence
hate my guts.
the,
They hate my guts. Yeah, I know them.
but
I know them.
but they hammer into these men, you got control, dude, which is great. But what they do is they teach men swing the pendulum all the way over here to avoidance.
Yep.
In essence, they're teaching avoidance to men, which is not the most healthy way to approach life. And there are whole industries based on this. Let's teach men avoidance. And it appeals a great deal to your very hyper anxious men of, yeah, flip things on their head, so to speak, and become this other alpha male type of dude. And the riches of sex and so forth await me. And I talk to those men who come back from that pendulum swing of like, yeah, that wasn't too fulfilling. That didn't work. Sure, I got more sex out of it, but I was with a bevy of not so mentally healthy women. And yeah, that wasn't good. They ended in a lot of chaos, another marriage that ended, and so forth, and not so good. Yeah, but there's a lot of people out there that are charging these poor men thousands and thousands of dollars to teach them how to be avoidant a-holes, basically.
Yes. Yes. Well, people think that attachment's on a spectrum, and it's not. You have a line down the middle. You have insecurely attached people here and securely attached people here. And in this pool, you have the anxious and the avoidant and the blend of the two disorganized swimming around together. And all red pill dating stuff does is teach you how to say, well, I shouldn't be anxious. Women are bad. Actually, what they really teach you is that every woman on the planet has borderline personality
It's
disorder.
true.
They don't say that, but that's what they teach you.
Mhm.
And then they say, women are so evil, you are justified in anything you do to them. So here's how you can prey upon their insecurities like they would do to you. And then they teach these anxiously attached men how to mimic avoidant tendencies and become domineering and over controlling. And then those men do it, and it feels kind of good for a little while because now you have attention. And yeah, these mentally scared, terrified, women are falling all over themselves, begging for approval and crying themselves to sleep at night because I don't give them approval. Ha ha ha. And then they come out the other side and say, "What have I been doing?"
Mm.
And only then do they cross the middle line. All they did was keep swimming in the same pool. They just changed their colors. That's all they did. But now you cross the line over into secure attachment. This is where the healthy women are, and they will not let you near them while you're behaving like this over here in the red pill pool, or the blue pill anxious pool. None of that's going to work. The whole blue pill, red pill dichotomy, that's for this insecure attachment pool on this side. It does not apply over here to the secure pool. You got to really figure it out. Otherwise, you're going to get trapped in this
Yeah, I
pool.
have these men that are fresh out of very dysfunctional marriages and divorce. And a standard thing I tell to a lot of men is just put the dating and the ladies on hold for a while you work on yourself. Don't bring other people into your world. Just cause chaos, and you have your kids to worry about. Focus on them, and let's just worry. The ladies ain't going anywhere. Just put them on hold for a while. Put them up on the shelf.
And good relationships are your references. They're your display boards that show who you are. They showcase your ability to even have relationships. Healthy women won't really touch you if you don't have healthy
Bingo.
relationships.
Yeah.
So spend some time building healthy relationships, learning to attract and maintain healthy women and healthy relationships with them, and then signal properly to them. Otherwise, you're doomed. You're just going to pick up a woman who is anxious, disorganized, avoidant, or personality disorder. And all of those sound maybe fun in the first couple weeks,
Mm.
but then when you wake up and she's hovering over you with a knife saying, "Promise me that you will only ever love me," it's not so
Oh
fun
boy.
anymore.
Yeah.
So
And these men, they will try to sell me on the fact that, no, you don't understand. This gal that I met, even though it was 2 days after my divorce, even though, I'm a basket case of a mess and I'm still working on my issues, this one is on paper, Ralph, I'm telling you, everything is perfect. Everything is great. And I said, well, here's the deal.
yeah,
Right away, I can just tell you there's something wrong here. What's that? Well, you went to this woman and said, here's my situation. I'm 2 days divorced. Blah blah blah. Let me show you all my anxious tendencies. Let me fawn over you. Let me. And she didn't say, "Hey, it was great to know you, Bob, but I'm going to have to, pass." That's what a healthy woman would do. No, she said, "You got it. Can I move in tomorrow?" And you guys have been super. That shows me that something's going on up here in a noodle, and you two are going to just cause all kinds of chaos together.
they say that the research shows that mentally unstable women are best in bed early in the relationship.
Yes.
And that's because
Hmm.
they have to be to compensate for
Mm.
everything that comes after. Now, you know how you achieve real satisfaction in bed is with massively high levels of oxytocin. Did you know, Ralph? I learned this recently. Oxytocin spray up the nose is on track to replace Viagra for male erection difficulties by the year
No way.
2035.
Interesting. Wow.
Oxytocin, after the novelty dopamine wears off at 5 to 7 months, oxytocin drives the male erection and the male orgasm and the female arousal and the female orgasm. So you must be properly, securely oxytocin bonded on both sides to have an amazing
Hmm.
sex life past that 7 month mark. It's mandatory. Otherwise, you will not be able to achieve it.
Yeah. Now the Viagra and all those vasodilating drugs, they basically just cause a lot of blood flow to go to the extremities, hence, hey, erection. But the oxytocin, I think, does it operate on the same, somewhat, some of the same mechanics? The end result is the same, or
So it does a number of things. One thing it definitely does is it takes the male sex drive, and instead of being a scatter shot, like, "Hey, look, two rocks together. Oh, I should call her." Like, instead of that, you're like, "Hey, you know what? I'm with my wife, and I feel so good with her, and I love her. And yeah, she's hot, and I like roping on her, but I'm really enjoying the physical contact. I'm enjoying the touch. I want you." And it increases your desire for her and actually makes her visually more attractive. This is why a guy who's like 55, 60 can get it on with his wife who's 55, 60, and they're perfectly happy. And you're like, "Oh, how could he find her attractive?" It's because in his eyes, she's like a 9 out of 10. Like she's like
mm,
20 years younger in his eyes. He doesn't even see that. He is so in love with her. His eyes it makes him a little dumb and a little blind and a little drunk, and it makes him desire her. So the blood rushes there. One thing oxytocin does is it actually makes, for women, it makes the uterus contract. For men, it
mm,
makes the areas where we push forth fluids, it makes those
mm-hmm,
contract hardcore. So men who have really, really want really great climaxes, you need more oxytocin as well so that you can really be driving that. So you will desire her overwhelmingly more than you desire anyone else. And this, what the effect this has is when you have a desire or an urge, because you still will, your brain instantly locks in and is like, this is an opportunity to go be with her. I'm going to go do that. And then you go talk to her and say, "Hey, babe, take off your pants," right? Like, "Hey, can we do this?" And she'll probably say, "I would love to, but it's been a day or two since we spent time together. Can we spend 20 minutes talking first?" What she's asking for is, "You're doing okay, but I need an oxytocin boost." Then, as I get that boost and that connection from talking and holding hands, then maybe we do a massage. Then we actually start kissing and foreplay. Then we actually start intercourse, and the oxytocin goes through the roof. And this is how you get the situation where a woman is like ready to climax within like seconds of starting the process, or
mm,
multiples with you. And then you're the best she's ever had. And oh my gosh, she finished and she's like out cold with her feet in the air kind of thing. That's how you achieve that, is by building that oxytocin connection. And it's crucial for men to have that as well, for all the reasons, all the medical reasons we listed.
mm-hmm. And the vasopressin that you mentioned earlier, isn't that something that spikes post orgasm in men?
I'm not sure about how it spikes post orgasm. I do know that when you achieve goals together, it spikes. So actually helping your wife achieve one or two or 10 or 20 or 300 or whatever you want, helping her achieve that as a team is actually very effective for your vasopressin as well. This is why men usually arbitrarily are like, "Hey, babe, are you there yet? Or what are we doing? Did we do it?" He's like, he's trying to get her there, but it's like, did we do it together? That's actually a vasopressin bonding activity. Now, most women are like, this is the dumbest, most arbitrary thing on the planet. But for the guy, he's trying to like play a video game. He's like, come on, we can do
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Let's score some more shots. We can, come on, babe, it'll be
Hmm.
great. She's like, please, no more. And that's a good thing. That's what it should be. It should be playful. It should be fun. It should be goals sometimes and kissing and pausing and going back in. It should be a shared experience that's the culmination of the rest of the relationship. It culminates in this moment of joy again and again and again. And that's what the bedroom experience should be. Not, hey, babe, it's been like 5 or 6 days.
You
And I know
wanna?
we haven't, you wanna, we haven't spoken in 5 days. And I forgot you were even here, but do you wanna? Like, I saw a video earlier on social media. It made me think of you. Do you wanna? Like, that's not how your drive is meant to be as a man. Is that going to be there at times? Oh, hell yes, especially high testosterone. But that shouldn't be the experience with your wife, especially if you want her to be ready to
Hmm.
go to wanna 5 times a week. You've got to build that.
Hmm. But what hinders a lot of men in their efforts is they say, this is a lot of work. This is a lot of effort on my part and conscious effort on my part. Do this, not that, and so forth. And it seems a little difficult. And the men will say, I really didn't have to do all that much work at the early stages of the relationship. The old new relationship energy and everything took over, and it was so simple then. But now, 8 years and 3 kids later, this is tough. It's like, yeah, well, welcome to long-term monogamy. It's not going to be,
Well, sure.
what do the women often say? Foreplay starts when? Very first thing in the morning when you wake
Well,
up.
well,
Good morning, babe.
it starts when you finish intercourse is really where it starts.
Oh, there you
It's
go. Yeah.
every minute of every day is supposed to be foreplay. It's touch. It's relaxing. It's enjoying.
Hmm.
You should be enjoying it. Shouldn't be a chore. Oh, I gotta go hug my wife. Oh, I gotta go
Yeah.
kiss my wife. Oh, I gotta tell her she looks pretty. Oh, I gotta slap her on the butt again. Oh, I'm so tired of her butt. Like, man, it shouldn't be this way, you guys. Like, this shouldn't be the life. It should be like, man, I'm pumped. I'm excited. I'm overflowing. Part of the problem is that a lot of men have very low oxytocin, and low oxytocin makes you very mechanical, and it makes you lethargic and tired and miserable until the cortisol spikes you up. And then you only have cortisol driving you all the time. So you're fear based, and you're only going to jump to when your wife tries to file for divorce at 15, 20 years, and your kids all hate you. That's where you're going to jump to. So yeah, does it sound tiring to try to spend time with your wife and build a relationship? Sure. You know what else is tiring is a really savage, vicious divorce where she takes almost everything from
Mm.
you, hates you, and your kids won't speak to you. And then you try to go get a girlfriend off Tinder and she stabs you or gives you chlamydia. So that's also pretty exhausting.
It's quite the picture you painted here.
Spend some time
It's
doing the work.
realistic for some men.
Spend some time doing the work around the house. I don't like it when my roof leaks on my head when it rains. Well, then maybe spend
Yeah.
a little time repairing the roof. You probably spend time on home maintenance and you don't complain about it because it keeps your home intact and gives you a shelter that's warm and safe. Same thing with your marriage. It requires some maintenance. Surprise.
Yeah. And another layer of difficulty to all this is your nice guys have a very difficult time with boundaries. Anything that approaches boundaries is I'm a jerk. I'm being a dick to my wife, and I can't do that. I can't tell her no, I don't want to do that. And I can't tell her stop doing that. Do you know the drama that results in that when we do something? It's like, yeah, welcome to being an adult, and welcome to being a guy. Every now and then you got to say no. Every now and then you have to say stop doing that.
It is so much higher maintenance and so much more of a jerk move to say, okay, okay, okay,
Mm.
okay, okay. And then, well, now I hate you and you should have known and I'm angry and resentful and I'm passive aggressive. It's so much more to rug pull the person when you've told them okay for so long, or to leave them feeling stressed out all the time because you won't draw lines. It is so much more of a jerk move to live wrapped up in your fear and basically cowardice. It is so much more of a jerk move to do that for yourself and for everyone around you. And quite honestly, if the people around you are only with you because you never ever make a fuss, then you shouldn't probably be around those people. You should make more of a fuss so they leave, because the healthiest people demand that you have boundaries, and you are cutting short your own happiness and your own life to please people that don't even like you.
Very good. Mr. Adam Lane Smith, how can people find out more about you and what you do?
Oh man, they could Google my name, Adam Lane Smith. I'm everywhere. My website is adamlanesmith.com. You can also find me on Twitter as Adam Lane Smith. Or if you really want to get adventurous, go over on Instagram or YouTube as at Attachment Adam. And you're going to find 1,000 long and short videos on my YouTube. You're going to find a tremendous amount of relationship guides and material over on Instagram. I do also offer free discovery calls for people looking for help on their attachment. I work with individuals, couples, everybody who needs help.
Very cool. So, for all you anxious guys out there listening to this, Adam Lane Smith, check out his stuff. So many of these guys, as you're probably aware, Adam, hyper investigate and research. There are a lot of ADHD guys that get this. This is their new obsession and their new hobby, if you will, and they dive in 1,000% into this. Well, guys, dive into Mr. Adam Lane Smith's stuff. He has enough material out there to keep you busy for a while. All you got to do is do a search on Google. You'll find Adam Lane Smith. Adam, thank you so very much. I appreciate it, brother.
It's been an honor. Thank you.
All right. My pleasure. Thank you.